Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all have had a wonderful day. And we thank you again for signing up to be a part of the Superintendent's Teacher Advisory. And this is an opportunity, as you may well know, to share and exchange critical information that you deem important for the superintendent to consider or work together, as we are all committed to our mission and purpose to be a school district that's committed to high performance. So this is your opportunity to engage in that endeavor. So without further ado, we're going to make sure that we stay on schedule today. And Dr. Beasley has some wonderful things to share with you. And please, if you can, just hold your questions towards the end, and we'll be sure to entertain each and every one of you. And if you have cell phones, just silence those as we are recording today. Without further ado, I would like to bring to the podium Dr. Maurice J. Beasley, our Superintendent of Schools.
Hello, everyone. Hope you all had a great day. It's been a long day, I'm sure, but it's the week before Thanksgiving, so we are good, aren't we? Looking forward to just some time off with family and self. And self. How are you all doing today? Good, good. Well, how many of you came to the last teacher advisory meeting? One. Okay, so it's open. So as others come in, they'll trickle in, and we'll just continue to share and to discuss. What I'd like to do is to basically start out by sharing some movement that we've made relative to some of the issues that were mentioned. And I want to say that a lot of the issues that were mentioned were often high-level concerns, and we've met with different groups, so I'll try to tease out the issues that were specific to our teachers. Of course, one issue that has come up consistently with many groups, but it did come up with teachers, was discipline. And so I wanted to share some things that we're doing with discipline, and then get your feedback as to, and what I need you to do is, because I'm sure you all are the effective disciplinarians, if you will. I need you to kind of step back and look at the school and you know, from a high level view to see, are things improving? We're working with all of our principals to ensure that, of course, that we have consistent expectations across the district. Of course, this year we implemented our attendance protocol to improve attendance. Judge Teskey and his office has implemented a special court for us to address discipline. Our goal is to really reduce the number of students that missed 6 or more days last year. I thought it was a bit excessive. And almost at the secondary level, almost 60% of the students. That's just too many kids missing too many days, but then you can't talk about kids or not talk about kids coming to school in one breath and then talk about raising test scores in another breath. I'm sorry, that doesn't go together. And so we've been working to improve that, and we have seen an improvement in the number of students. And Ed is my data guy. He's here today, but not necessarily prepared to discuss, but we are monitoring that expectation to see if we have a reduction in the percent of students who are missing 6 or more days as compared to last year. So we'll look at for first semester of last year to first semester of this year to see if we're having a positive impact. But beyond attendance, discipline has been an issue. So what have we done? Of course, at the secondary level, there have been some changes relative to the students being assigned to the alternative school going into hearings. And those are just the minor, small number of cases that eventually make it to the tribunal to get to the alternative school. But we did tweak some processes to ensure that if that's where the students need to be, that's exactly where they need to be. We provided some support at the elementary level relative to the additional para that principals should be using rather creatively to help with the concept of quiet time, if you will, or some students who are at the elementary level, since we don't have an elementary alternative school, they may just need to go in a room and calm down a while so the teacher can continue with instruction. Not a perfect solution, but they needed some help, some relief at the elementary level. We've reallocated some safety and security resources to help with giving a presence on some of our campuses at the elementary level that had the data suggested that they had more issues than other campuses. And so we are noticing a reduction in incidents at the elementary level. We implemented the tip line this year. You all are familiar with the tip line. You should have it on you. If you would get this, download the school system app, we added a tip line. So if students have bullying concerns or personal issues that they want to discuss that could impact their safety, they can share anonymously or identify who they are. It goes straight to an SRO who works with the administrator to address the concern. So we implemented that this year as well. Of course, training is ongoing. Training of those who need to be trained, working with principals to really delve into their data to identify where are the discipline issues occurring. Are they coming from a particular grade? Are they coming from a particular team? Are they coming in a particular area of the school? And once you identify those hot spots, if you will, what are you going to do about it? Implementing some strategies to address that. You know, I really think, and people have to understand, there are high expectations in place, but you know, at the school level, who is the one who conveys the high expectations for students? It starts with the principal, doesn't it? It starts with the principal, working with the faculty and staff to ensure that we have consistent rituals and routines, consistent expectations to ensure that our students govern themselves as they should so we can teach them, and when they don't, that we respond appropriately in a timely manner. So we're monitoring the discipline. The next area, of course, that came up was the stipends and the bonuses and all of that money stuff. And I'll just say, as you all know, as we strengthen our fiscal position, this year we won't have a mid-year bonus because I've got to make sure we don't have to cut back on teachers. Y'all know I don't want to have to cut back on teachers, so no mid-year bonuses. And I've said that several times, and I'll say it again so everybody will know, don't expect a check in middle of January. It ain't coming this year, not unless it comes from another place. It's not coming from the school system, so everybody's going to have to, when they get that end of December check, hold on to a little bit of it and get you through the month. You know how we do sometimes. I have to even train myself. Don't spend it all. Don't spend it all. But we're working to build up our funds, and one thing we want to always be able to do is, you know, if the state has a salary increase, that's always great for us teachers and all. But we also have to be mindful of cost of living increases as well. And so we want to be prepared in case that has to occur this year as well. I think you should know, relative to our FTE process, we expect to earn almost $4 million addition in revenue next year than we did this year, because we did such a great job with our FTE, which is good. And so you all know, we get into that FTE and we look at how we're going to earn those funds. We work with principals to get kids scheduled the way they should, because that all matters. People don't realize, but it all matters. Having them scheduled correctly, because when the state pulls that data, we get funding for, depending on what if they're gifted, special ed, regular ed, career tech, how they're scheduled and how we're serving them. And so right now, the team, and I say the team, all of us, teachers, principals, everyone, we did such a great job. Right now, according to the last report that I secured from the team, we're expected to increase our funding by $3.8 million next year. That's pretty good for 1 year. So that should help us. My goal is to continue to decrease expenses and increase revenue. And that puts us in a better position so we can, as we implement things, we can sustain them over time. And that's really where we want to be. I would love to see us, our teachers in this county, be the highest paid in the metro area. And it's not impossible. You just got to have a strategy to get there. And right now, according to the MRESA study that I received this year, we're one of the top three, I would say top three competitive salaries. But it would be great to be at the top relative to salary. So that's not an issue. And most people don't leave because of salary, but you all know it helps. It helps. You know, I tell people an extra $300, $400 a month. You say it doesn't make a difference. You get 4 children, you'll see it does make a difference. It always made a difference in my house, so I'm sure it makes a difference in everybody else's house. That's a car note, insurance note, something. And so it does make a difference. And so we're working to do that. Even while we have some groups like who are not in the TRS system, some custodians, some child nutrition workers, they don't get access to the teacher retirement system. So I'm working to see what we can do, because we need them too. And if bus drivers and custodians stop working, I don't know how much teaching we can do. And so we're working to identify some solutions in that area. Now, relative to the signing bonuses, we'll just have to see where we go with the signing bonuses after this year. Right now, we will not have signing bonuses because of our fiscal situation and just trying to strengthen our reserve funds. But we also know that those signing bonuses were a pretty good hook to get people to come into our county. And so we've just got to figure out where we are. And as I look at this fiscal situation closely as we develop the budget, then at that time, we'll make some critical decisions as to what we can or what we need to even do relative to signing bonuses. The instructional focus, I think, has been strengthened this year. I think we started out pretty good last year, as evidence in our increase in CCRPI scores, an increase in our data. I think this year we'll do even better because of a strategy that we've already shared, where we're not only we're teaching everyone the content standards as we did last year, increasing the rigor, but we're also addressing those students who may not be in EIP or RAP, but are at that developing level, so we can get them over the hump. And so we're preparing to roll out the online tool in reading and math for schools to get those kids in that developing category connected. So before school, after school, carve out time during the school day, small group instruction, weekends with family at school, Saturday school, they can be working on eliminating those reading and math deficits. So in addition to that, the teachers teaching the grade level content, we will see, I believe, from my experience, we'll see a fundamental shifting of our data, with more students performing at the proficient and distinguished levels versus performing at the beginning and developing levels. And so I think our strategy is going to really position us to be an example in the metro area and the state. The tool will be rolled out. We're preparing right now to roll it out for everyone to be trained by that Friday before students return second semester, with the pre-screening of certain identified students to occur within the 2 weeks we get back, the first 2 weeks we get back, for those students to be on that tool consistently throughout the year. And we'll be in a better position once we get it implemented to start the tool when we come back in August. So this semester, we had to spend time actually identifying and purchasing the tool and training and implementing, but next year we'll be able to start with it already in place. So I anticipate a bump up in our outcomes this year, but I anticipate a significant bump up once we can start from day one next year. So I see nothing but a trend of improvement occurring in our school system over the next few years. We decided to include the second graders, because our goal long term is if I can get every third grader reading on and doing math on or above grade level, and then I just got to maintain them, right? Over a period of years, we should be fine. Again, the tool, K8 is iReady. iReady. So K8 is iReady, it has reading and math. And at the high school level, we're using two. We use Odysseyware, we currently use Odysseyware, and we're using Achieve 3000. We decided to go with two because Odysseyware, depending on the level of a high school student, if they're real low, it doesn't address sometimes the low level high school students. So we decided to go with Achieve 3000 for those students. It helps them in reading. And then Odysseyware allows students to accelerate. And so I want to see more kids accelerating. And so you can come up to grade level, right? But don't stop there, right? Let's just go ahead and get all of our kids accelerated. I want us to move from a a remediation mentality to an acceleration mentality. Even at the K-8 level with the I-Ready, you can bring them up to grade level, but they can keep going. Take them beyond grade level. It doesn't hurt. It's a good tool. And I think that, we had teachers and all others who helped us select it. So we're excited about that. So I think the strategy is working. I think the morale is improving. We'll be doing some surveys just to see, so we can, sometimes it's good to feel that it's improving, but it's good when people tell you and you have some concrete data that tells you that things are improving. We're working on some customer service standards that we're going to be pushing out. We work with our auxiliary staff, secretaries, front-end people, who oftentimes are the face of the school because they're the first individuals that people see when they walk into the office. So we, through our advisory process, we identified some things that everybody thought we should, as a school system, we should all embrace as we deal with our parents and our customers. So we're framing that up along with a little baseline survey, and we're going to get that out to everybody and wrap some support and training and conversation. And people say, well, what's the training? What's the training? What's the training? I tell folks, listen, everybody don't have to be trained to be nice. I'm sorry. Sometimes, you can have a whole list of things, but it just boils down to just 2 words. Just be nice and kind to folk. That's it. Treat people the way you want to be what? Treat it. It's just, it ain't really that deep. I can put you in a 5-10 hour training just to tell you that. But do I need to waste money to tell you to just treat people the way you want to be treated? No, I shouldn't have to do that. Always put yourself in that position. Mom and dads and others are doing their best sometimes to deal with life and children. And if they come up to the school, clearly they're coming up there for a reason. Because I don't think any of us have a whole lot of time to spare. And so we're working to do that. So you'll see some information relative to customer service coming out in the very near future. Let's see. I think those were the major things. Of course, training is still, and I'm pleased to hear and see the data that we got people participating in the content training, which is excellent. The early dismissal days are being used this year at the school level. I've not identified early dismissal days for next year. So let's use this group to help us figure out what days will be early dismissal days next year. So make a note there. You all know the calendars have been approved, right? We got 2 years of calendars approved. We pushed those out to everybody. So now you can plan those vacations. So we got 2 calendars, and I know for sure we don't have school on election day next year. Right. So, but we will still do some early dismissal days, and for the most part, I think the schools should own those days because it's hard to do central level professional development in an hour and a half. It really becomes a waste of time, our time. So we're working with principals to ensure that they effectively use the hour and a half. And I hadn't had any major complaints that I'm aware of this year on the use of those days. Let's see. Any other topics that we brought up the last time we were meeting, that we met? Oh, special ed. And so, we're in the process of, we've got some new leadership there. We're in the process of bringing in some retired educators to help us in some areas. As a matter of fact, I just got a request today for some funding, so I'll be meeting with them to make sure we have a long-term plan to not just bring people on, but that they're working. They got the areas that we bring them on to improve, and they've got to improve in those areas. I just can't keep bringing on new people and new people and new people, but every year I'm dealing with the same outcomes. Does that make sense? That just makes no sense to me. You got to have, if I bring on 5 people in this particular area, then why am I dealing with that same area next year? And so we're working to address that. I think one thing we've been able to do this year, we hired, I think we're down to 63 vacancies, where before we carried about 200 plus vacancies. So, but some challenges have come along with that because some of the people we hired, we got to get them over the hurdles relative to getting their credentials taken care of. I just never understand how, having a job is important to me.
Yeah.
And so if somebody gives me a chance to get a job and training me up and supporting me, I'm gonna do my part to keep that job. So I don't know why we got to corral people in and ask them, are they doing what they need to do to keep their jobs? But we have to do that. You all understand that. So, it is what it is. It is what it is. And that's one of the challenges when I think about the vacancies that we filled and we've done provisional certificates and things of that nature. The work is making sure these people do their part to get the training, the certificate, et cetera, that they need in order for them to be offered a contract going forward. And all I can tell you all as teachers is this work. Just imagine your students trying to get them to do but it gets 100 times worse with grown people. Grown people. I'd rather deal with the young children any day. So we're working to deal with that, but I've had a few situations where I thought that some people were mismatched. They said they had a degree in one area, hired in one area, so we're working through those type issues as well. But I don't anticipate us having a vacancy issue this time next year. I think the word is out that our district is headed in the right direction. You saw the CCRP, the governor's list. We only had one school on the list, and that one school had the highest score on the list. And so then someone sent me a link to another article over the weekend where they identified the districts in the state that had the most schools on the list, and Clayton was nowhere listed. I said, that's what I'm talking about. Get us out of that conversation. So I anticipate we're in a better position today, and we'll be in a better position this time next year. Anything else? So you all just have to keep an eye on that special ed and keep giving me feedback. So we're about to bring in some more. We've got one or two that we brought in, but we're going to bring in some more, and just trying to balance it with the funding, just to help out and get us where we need to be. Anything else? Any other topics that I think I got them all? Okay.
I did ask about special ed for utilization of retired teachers, but I know the last time we spoke, I mentioned about basically about utilization of them based on Clayton County using them instead of allowing surrounding counties to entice those teachers or talent away. But one thing I noticed, Dr. Beasley, because at our school, it's become a problem. I'm at Smith, and my actually head mentor teacher is here with me, Miss Jones, to my right. And we have a lot of teachers that are brand new, 5 or less years, 1 to 2 years in our building. And because of that, because of the lack of mentors that we have in the building, I think we have barely 5 or 6. So a prime example would be, we have teachers, myself included, some of them have 3-to-1 ratios of mentoring new teachers. I have 4 new teachers that I'm mentoring this year. It's impossible. I can do so much in so little time, plus doing other jobs and responsibilities to help out, but it's just not effective. So, and I'm trying the best I can because I want to be able to impart into them some of my gifts. But what I'm concerned with is that, as I said before, we're losing our retired teachers because we're not utilizing them fully still. Special ed is fine, but when I see that we're lacking in mentors in the county because we have a higher percentage of teachers with less than 5 years that truly need some guidance and support, is there a way that we could maybe come up with some brainstorming for example, of hourly rates? I know we give remediation fees, we do this, that, and the other, but I know retirees don't want to work full time. That's the point of retirement. But if you would allow them to come in and mentor, I don't know how the schedule would be, if they have to put in 5 hours a week, whatever, I think the benefits would be unmeasurable. You just couldn't measure them because the new teachers need some type of assistance that's real and that's effective.
I'll take that.
Hello, I'm at Smith as well, Ms. Jones. I am the lead mentor at Smith. One thing that maybe could be a suggestion. I know that we have teacher development specialists in the county, but maybe if we put the lead mentors as teacher development specialists within the school to support the new teachers, I think that would be beneficial. And then it could probably possibly take some of the, I don't want to say stress, but some of the weight from the teacher development specialists, and maybe the teacher development specialists can train us on how to train new teachers, because I know that I have a teacher leadership degree, but I also sometimes sort of feel like maybe my gifts aren't being used to capacity. So maybe if I was able to train new teachers at a school level and still teach, but still have the responsibility of much more, more beneficial, maybe more beneficial to maybe become a teacher development specialist on the school level, being that I have the training as a lead mentor. So could that possibly be some type of suggestion where some of the lead mentors are pulled out of the classroom and compensated at that point for being a teacher development specialist, so that the new teachers can have the support? Because it does feel like a lot with teaching full-time, mentoring, and then not only am I mentoring, I'm also over all of the mentor teachers as well.
Well, clearly, based on both of your comments, we've got a shortage that we need to address. So I need to take that back to the professional development department and have some conversations. I think one of the resources that we are underutilizing in that area would be retired educators. And so I don't know if they've even thought about possibly, instead of funding it the way we currently do, maybe consider a structure that would acknowledge that they don't, a lot of retired educators, they don't want a full-time job. They only want to do a few hours a week, but they would get a lot of benefit and satisfaction out of supporting other individuals who are coming into the field of education. Yes,
Dr. Beasley, I think, to me, in my opinion, the shortage of mentoring fell through the cracks when they changed the mentor requirements. When we all had TSS, there was plenty of mentors, but when they changed the requirements and wanted us to get a new certification added on, and we already had TSS, had it for years, and here I am 2 years from retirement. I don't want to go take another add-on course to be a mentor. Why would I do that?
Did they not go back and change that? Because I had a conversation with them.
No, I didn't get anything.
It has been changed, though, because I'm also TSS, and I did not take the course, and I'm
Right.
okay, I'm not mentoring them, there's no way.
Exactly, that's the way.
I'm still mentoring, and
Yeah, I
I'm still
told
getting
them that they needed to change that, because I thought that was an extra hurdle that did not add any value to.
They need to make it known then that they have changed it back to TSS can go ahead and mentor if you had your original TSS, because that wasn't known, publicized at all. So that may help, in that area now that we know, so now, yes, plenty of mentors are becoming out of the woodwork now.
But it's not plenty.
Well, at our school, it was, right.
But I think as a lead mentor, I think the passion, because we've had effective coaching, I know that I have another degree, the passion for me mentoring may be different from, and not saying Ms. Barnes isn't a good mentor, but the passion for me could be different.
Because I've been trained to do it. And so I know that I'm passionate about leading new teachers and supporting mentor teachers on coaching effectively. And so I feel like if I'm able to do that and support new teachers, coach effectively, and pull me away from the classroom, I enjoy it, but I also feel like my gifts can be expanded too.
Good feedback. Well, you all are concerned about our younger teachers coming into the field, which is excellent. Because I'm telling you, it makes it better for everyone when they come and remain and they're successful.
Because I know when we pull data
We pull data and we say, okay, You know, I know at our school we had this initiative, green on the screen, green on the screen, we want green on the screen, and we were screaming, but I know if I touch 60 children, but then I can also touch 3 teachers that have 30 students apiece, then I'm empowering teachers as well, so that I can coach them on, hey, this worked for me, it can work for you. Try this strategy. And I think when we pull those mentor teachers out who have had the training to train those new teachers, I think it will help.
I agree. Very good.
Hi, I too am a lead mentor teacher at Harper Elementary School, and I agree with everything that was said. But what I believe the major problem is because in our building we have a lot of capable people who could be mentors, but because they don't have the TSS or the teacher leader endorsements, and they don't have the time to do like a year-long course. I think the course may need to be tweaked as far as maybe doing summer courses, because a lot of them, teachers said that they wouldn't mind taking a summer course so that when school started, they will be qualified to be a mentor. And there are a lot of capable teachers, but they don't have the qualifications. And right now, we are at a shortage as well. I have like 4 myself, so it's hard.
Well, I don't know, because I've got to go look at the requirements, and I know, again, we had this conversation. Maybe the word is not out there, but I think we did impose some restraints that contributed to this shortage that we're experiencing, and then we went back and should have communicated otherwise.
Well, at my school, we have a lot of new teachers this year also. And it's a thing where Clayton County has a lot of like technologically advanced programs, you know, with the system, with EduTracks, and I've been in Clayton County for 3 years, and I'm still learning things. So I'm just wondering, until we get the mentor thing resolved, like maybe we could do training, you know, computer training, you know, for all of the new teachers at regular intervals, you know, on the campuses. That would be a terrific benefit, I think.
So do you all not have individuals that provide technology training for your schools?
I think the county, as far as technically, I think we're above several counties surrounding us. I think the problem is with all the new teachers in the county. My building has probably at least about 40%, if we just did some SACS data. And the new teachers, they struggle more with classroom management, just teaching instruction, just basic teaching things is what they're really, what I know is they have a desperate need for.
But the thing is, it's like with the new student accounts, you know, the My Clayton and all of that, you know, I just feel like it would be beneficial for the new teachers to get extra training.
And I'm not going to disagree with you, but I would like to add, I think new teachers, that sometimes it's based off of age. Coming out of college, they're more technically sound than I am. So if anything, I would say to me as an experienced master teacher, I probably need more help. But I think in our buildings, our media specialists, we have so many people typically in the building that are so technically sound. Plus we have the people who come into the building who work on computers. There's a way to make that happen easily, your problem. I think as far as getting that.
We provide, every campus has a liaison technology specialist who is uniquely positioned to provide training to the staff, one-on-one training, etc. So I would want you all to make sure you know that. Every campus has a person identified to do just that. So the training is ongoing. There are district-wide opportunities, and if you go onto the platform where you sign up for training, they'll be listed there. But there is an opportunity at every campus for you to receive training through the support of the, I think it's called the teacher, technology specialist, right?
Yes, they
Instru-
are assigned, as you indicated. And if you have any problems with having to identify the person on site, contact April Mayo, who's the director in technology, who coordinates that effort for every single school, she and her staff. But we do know there's supposed to be some ongoing training throughout the year, and there's supposed to be identified staff in each school. And so make sure that you're reaching out accordingly.
And I think one of our challenges, you alluded to, is because we're bringing on so many new teachers, we've got to keep filling in that training gap, you know, that knowledge and implementation gap. And that's why last year I had April and her team to develop a tool that gives us, we started out with collecting data on all of the tools that we have, where teachers were with the implementation of those tools. And our goal is to monitor that, so they collect the data at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year, because our goal is to see that teachers are growing. And that's just ongoing work that we'll have to do, because we are bringing on so many people are retiring, and we're bringing on new people. And while they may be very proficient with technology, there is some amount of learning curve if they've not had access or they've not used this technology prior to coming on board here in Clayton. So that's just ongoing work, and that's why every campus has that technology person, because we know that we've just got a lot of people who need that support where it needs to happen, right there at the schoolhouse, whether it be in small groups or classroom setting or one-on-one. That person is positioned to provide that type of support.
I just wanted to, I know that one of the young ladies back there expressed a concern about the endorsement and the way it was where you go a whole year, Tuesday and Thursday. But there is one coaching endorsement that's out there now where you only do 5 classes for the year between September and April, and they're spread it out. And there's, of course, an online piece to it, but that way it's not as strenuous, where you have to go twice a week and it's a whole year. But there is one that you only do 5 times between September and October through the PLC. And with the teacher development specialist, can the SPED department have our own? Could they look at a position where the SPED department have their own? Because I know we rely on the compliance specialist, but because of their responsibilities, sometimes we don't get that support that we need, especially, and I'm one of the, I don't want to say veterans, but the more seasoned, I guess, teachers in the SPED department. So, but a lot of times because of the shortage and our new teachers, you know, we have to take on that extra support to help them. And sometimes because our load is overloaded because of the shortage, where my caseload may be more than normal, and then trying to reach out to help that new teacher, because we don't want them to leave, you know, it can be overwhelming at times. And sometimes with the compliance specialist, because of her role and responsibilities, you know, they tend to get to that burnout level or frustrated level. So maybe if we can have a teacher development specialist or another compliance specialist, I don't know.
Well,
but
I would submit that the teacher development specialist should be serving any teacher who's within the induction period.
Right.
And that would include a regular ed or special ed teacher.
Right.
The compliance specialists clearly are helping with the IEP management, case management,
okay.
and ensuring they have the support, resources that they need to do that and be in compliance.
Okay.
But all of the teachers who are in the induction phase, 0 to 3 years, should have access to the teacher development specialists. And I want to say this year we increased the number, just because we had such an increase in the number of new teachers. But I can tell you, even with the increased number, as you said earlier, they need a lot of help with management. They need a lot of help with just organization, classroom organization, especially when we started issuing the provisional, which which I knew they would need, because people think that they can teach 30 kids, and if you've not been in a classroom with 30 kids, it's easy looking out, telling somebody how to do it, but when you actually have to do it, it ain't as easy as it looks. So just more work for us to do in that area, and so we are shoring up. I think it will get better over time, especially as you say, we can retain these teachers. We'll see, of course, they'll get more experience, those who we retain, and then if the numbers start decreasing that we need to onboard, then that gives us fewer people that need that type of support. You know, we're just in this transitional period where we've just got a lot of new folk. But if we make the right decisions, and I believe we are, and we will, I think we'll be in a position in the next few years where we'll minimize the number of people hopefully leaving our field with a few other considerations that we put in place.
More retained teachers this year.
I do. We'll see, but I do anticipate more will be retained. Now, those who didn't take care of their paperwork, I don't know what I'm gonna do about that group. Y'all gotta help us out in that. When you go back, tell them, take care of your paperwork. You know, but maybe they got some money, the family had left them somewhere. My family wasn't here.
Dr. Beasley, I wanted to know, has your team had any discussion as far as retraining when it comes to the SST process? At my school, I do a lot of talking, expressing my concerns when it comes to the SST. I'm currently an REP teacher, and I do a lot of interventions with my scholars. And I know that a lot of things are not happening as far as meetings are concerned. And I know it's a bit overwhelming. And I know there are a lot of individuals who are SST chairs who don't understand what it is that their job, you know, is to do as far as a part of the process. So I was just wondering, has any conversation come up about that? Is, you know, any changes coming down the pipeline? I mean, because even for myself, I've stepped out to take the SST coordinator endorsement outside of Clayton just because I have a passion about the SST process.
So to answer your question, yes, where Ms. Dr. Nunez is working with the team right now to review our current SST process, and so we are refining and tweaking that this year to begin training in the spring and in the summer, et cetera. The purchase of the online tool in reading and math is going to help, because it's just been my experience that sometimes we tell people to follow the SST process, but then we don't give them the interventions that they need. And then, you know, if you're really doing the SST process correct, progress monitoring is important, isn't it?
Definitely
right?
is.
And sometimes if you don't have the right tools for progress monitoring, so you may have an SST team meeting or what have you, you may put some things on paper, but who's really monitoring that?
Right.
Who's really ensuring that the intervention is working or not working, and then bringing the team back together when necessary to, and then I think one of our challenges in our district is we have so many kids who are at the beginning and developing level that overwhelms our SST process.
Right.
And so I think our strategy of moving more kids to proficient and distinguished is going to even improve the SST process.
Yes.
Does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah, it will, definitely.
I'm telling you, when you, I mean, it's like we just need to be SST schools right now. You know, I'm just saying, there's so many kids at that level. And so we got to get these kids on grade level and higher.
Because sometimes, you know, even when I come to individuals about certain things, you know, it's kind of like, well, I'm not ready just yet, you know, but I'm trying to make sure that I stay on it because I see a lot of I see them basically, I see them every day.
But I can tell you from my experiences that people want to do the SST process the right way, but if they don't have the right tools, it makes it very difficult. And I've always been one to advocate, you got to give people the right tools to do SST. Especially when you have large numbers of students who are not on grade level. So I think we'll be in a better, we're moving in the right direction. I think we're going to see better. I think as we implement the new tool, iReady, and achieve 3,000 at the high school level, we see these kids shift and get on grade level, then we'll be able to really spend time with the kids who really need the SST process. I think right now it's just overwhelmed with kids who don't need it.
Exactly.
Because the data just says they're not on grade level, but we're just overwhelmed.
Okay, Dr. Beasley, my concern is data. I know we've been moved to a data-driven culture where we're doing what the data tells us to do. However, my concern is oftentimes the data that we're receiving from EduTracks is inaccurate. I've had times where it literally shows the student's grade as 0%, and I'll click in it to see why it's 0%, and there's green, which means that they got it right, but it's still showing it as 0%. I've also had the unit test and benchmark where we're testing them on standards that we have not yet even taught, which I feel like is very unfair. Or it's part of the standard, but a standard got split, especially this year. For instance, in 5th grade math, add, subtract, multiply, and dividing, decimals got split into 2 because it was such a big unit. So it got split into 2. So one is unit 2, adding and subtracting, the next is multiplying and dividing, but yet and still we're seeing multiplying and dividing on our unit 2 test. Bringing those concerns up, nothing actually changes. The data doesn't change, the data stays the same. Even if we do preview the test prior to and address our concerns, nothing in actual EduTracks changes, and it's hard for me to be accountable for the data that I'm receiving and take full ownership of it when I know that most likely it's not correct or not valid.
Yes, ma'am.
Yesterday in our math content lead meeting, we addressed that very same thing. So what we did was in the meeting was we split up into groups. Each group took a grade level, and we actually went through the next upcoming unit test, and we compared the DOK level and the questions, and we actually analyzed each question to make sure that the question was going to be pertinent to where you're at right now in your math. So we did do that in our content lead session on yesterday. So you shouldn't see that problem coming up in this next unit assessment in your unit 3.
I think that's a great thing that you all did that, and that's the most appropriate to do. I think to speak to your specific concern about EduTracks, if there are some issues with EduTracks, let us know so we can work with the research and eval and the company to address. It could be something internal. There are constantly revisions going on with that tool. I'll leave that there because I don't anticipate staying with EduTracks as we get through that. So I'm gonna leave that right. I'm not impressed with it, and if I'm not impressed with it as an instructional person, it's probably something we need to really consider. And I don't believe that I should spend more time working with the tool than I do using the tool to give me what I need. And so that's, like when I pick up a hammer, I need to know the hammer is what worked, right? That's the purpose of the hammer. And so when I pick up EduTracks or we use EduTracks, I need it to be working. Your point about sometimes we'll assess like a unit assessment and the students have not necessarily been taught, we try to develop those unit assessments in alignment with what should be taught or what should have been taught in that unit. The challenge is, and this is just the reality that I don't know if we'll ever fix until we get everybody on or above grade level. The challenge is everybody's in varying places. And while teacher A may be fine and have taught the entire unit and all the standards related to that unit, teacher B down the hall may have a different situation. But that unit assessment is still scheduled at a certain time. And so unfortunately, it's kind of like when kids, if they take the test, the GMAS in April, if they're not taught all the content, they'll end up having problems on content that they've not been taught. The only way you really address that is they got to teach the content. And even sometimes, as you say, the standards are split. And sometimes the problems, we purchase an item bank, sometimes the item bank doesn't acknowledge that the standards are split. And so relative to using the data, I always say the data informs your decision. And that means we've just got to drill down, do your item analysis. Okay, look at this item. Was this item appropriate for this unit and for our students based upon what I taught? That should inform you. If the answer is yes, then okay, how did the students do on that item? Item number 2, this question reflected a standard that we didn't teach. How did the students do? They didn't do too well. Well, we know why, because we didn't teach it. So I will say what I look for when I look at the unit assessments, I look to ensure that we're using the data to have those type conversations. I don't believe in that I can use that district-wide unit assessment data to come to any conclusion. And so it's a tool to help us have those type of informed conversations so we can decide if where our students are based upon how they did on those items, each of those items. But you got to have those type conversations because everybody's in a different place. We're not in a position as a district where all 5th grade teachers are in the same place in the curriculum. We're just not there. And as much as we'd like to be there, and we're making progress as long as we start closing these gaps, the type of conversation that has to occur when you do your data analysis that I just described, it has to be occurring everywhere. Because you're right, the data it's data, but it may not be telling you what you need, what you know it needs to be telling you. And that's why you got to take it problem by problem, unit by unit, and then decide when an item is assesses something that you're not taught, then you may have to pick up that item at a later time. But still use the data that you can use. It's not perfect, it's by no means perfect, but still use the data that you can use to I like to use the word, to affirm or confirm if the student have mastered that standard in a manner that allows you to see that they can do well on an assessment item for that standard. Again, not perfect, but I don't know if we'll ever get there, because let's say I close all the gaps today. I can assure you, if I have 300 5th grade teachers on any given day, they'll be probably in different places. It's probably somewhere together, but just in different places because they have 300 different classrooms of students. Does that make sense? But if there are issues with the tool that we can work with the software developer to address, then we need to know what those are. I want to say I've got another 2 years ago, if that long, but it's a challenge.
Apologies again, but as I tell you, I've been in the county now, this is my 31st year. I love this county. I'm still Team Beasley. I told you I was to continue to be on that path and that trail with you. But something you mentioned about the math content trainer, I thought it was inactive because I am a math content trainer. I used to go out and train, and then so many years went by and then it was like never heard of it again. So I'm somewhat shocked about hearing that we still have the program. But my number one is, Dr. Beasley, I missed this when I came in late, but I had another appointment. But my question is, if we have no way of attracting new teachers besides for we're moving in the right direction, and there's no signing bonuses of any kind, most people aren't going to be committed to a county, especially with less than 5 years. They're going where the money's at. So do we have something in place to hopefully keep those people attracted to our county besides for just we're moving in the right direction? Money talks louder than just moving in the right direction.
I mentioned that before you came, that while we're keeping an eye on the money, and we're not saying that the incentives are going to be in place as we develop the budget, we acknowledge the reality, as I said, that you have to have a hook. And so we're trying to figure out what those hooks are. Don't know how much, who, etc., but we're going to try to figure it out. One hook, as I mentioned to all of them, right now I think we're probably one of the 3rd highest paying districts in the metro area. I want to move us to number 1, which I think will be a good hook. And then, so we're going to figure it out as we, the balance is get the fund balance up where it ought to be, but at the same time, as I shared with them, this FTE, we did pretty good. We anticipate increased revenue of almost $4 million next year because we did such a great job with FTE this year. And so that helps. And every year we anticipate it's going to get better and better. And my commitment is as we increase revenue, we're going to decrease expenditures, which puts us in a better position to not only implement, but to sustain these increases, whether it be bonuses, incentives, or just making sure we have a salary scale #1 in the metro area.
All right, I had just had a real quick question slash concern with the increase of instruction. I know you just mentioned the different programs that we plan to adopt to help with bridging the gap and increasing instruction, but one of our babies on yesterday kind of beat me to the punch. I wanted to know if that will be any way that we can purchase computers, such as Henry County, for all of our students, 3rd through 12th grade.
As a matter of fact, right now our technology team is looking into options. And so we know that that's a funding, and then we got to sustain. Let's say we issue, let's just say even 30,000 students a laptop on any given day. So many of them are going to be dropped and broken and stolen, etc. So you got to have a plan to sustain it. So I've asked the technology department to look at what are the options out there and to let's see how we can eliminate the gap between the access to technology, in this particular case, iPads, Chromebooks, whatever. And so we also know that has to occur as we look at SPLOS, our next SPLOS. And so clearly many districts use that SPLOS funding to purchase devices as well and then to sustain it as well. I think, again, part of our work as a district, some districts are in a position to use their local funds. Just want you all to know 96% of my local budget goes to salaries and benefits. So that doesn't leave much money for anything else. They got to have operational expenses as well. 4% goes to operational. So it's a matter of trying to take all these variables to get us where we need to go. But we have our eye on this one-to-one initiative. We're just trying to make sure that we have the funding and that once we purchase, we can sustain it. But I think we do a disservice by implementing, giving everybody a laptop today by the middle of the year. A third of them are broken or they need repairs, and we can't do it. And so all of those are considerations. Then I also asked the team to look at possibly some resources where kids can check out of libraries, like internet cards, so they can access, say they have their own computer at home, but they just don't have the internet, to try to close the internet access divide. So just a variety of things. Now, a lot of the digital resources, kids can use on iPhones. And so we're trying to say, okay, how can we leverage just the use of the iPhone? If we can't give everybody a laptop, but we got kids who can use iPhones, and maybe we need to start expanding and allowing use of the iPhone to do that. So just trying to be creative as to how do we give all of our kids access to devices, whether it's one we issue or one that the parents have issued to them, but that has the content that they need. And that's just, that's work that we're engaged in right now. But I anticipate in our next SPLOS, which put the word out, we'll probably be asking the board to vote on the SPLOS referendum next November. And a part of that SPLOS, technology, transportation will be a part, but we're going to build a new Morrow High School. We're designing now, but we want to build a new Morrow High School. We're going to continue. We're starting with the new Jonesboro High School this SPLOS. We'll continue. We're going to do a tear down, phase in, build up Jonesboro High School. We're going to build possibly a new, we were discussing either North Clayton High School or a Forest Park Middle School. And I think we decided that we would suggest the board focus on Forest Park Middle, because we don't know what's going to happen with the North Clayton area because of the new runway that the airport is going to build. So we may wait to let that kind of work itself out while we work on Forest Park Middle School, and then maybe the next SPLOS will build a new North Clayton High School. We're looking at a career and college academy, centrally located. And so I tell you, I can't tell people how to vote for SPLOST 6, but if they vote no and it doesn't pass, we don't have any other money. And so, hint, hint, right? And so, and the parents and all that I've shared that with have been very supportive so far. But again, the technology will be a part of that as well. And if you have ideas, let us know. I mean, you may have heard of, even though we're researching around to see how other districts are doing, a lot of districts are phasing it in. They're not doing everybody in 1 year. They may do like 1 grade level, and then go up a grade level like that, which to me is something you can sustain over time. A lot of schools do use their Title I funds to purchase additional technology. They do. Mm-hmm.
So it would be an individual school?
That's how they use it. In Title I, to some degree, it has to be locally controlled, how they decide to spend their funds based upon their needs assessment, parent involvement, etc. But many schools are doing that. But I think a good use of local funds would be to implement such an initiative one-to-one, but to make sure we can sustain it. I hear some districts are charging the parents like a $50 deposit in case it's lost or stolen, etc. And see, all those things would have to be considered as well.
All right, Dr. Beasley, just quickly, I just want like an update. We did talk about the ISF position last time in the beginning of the year. It had not fully been rolled out to all the schools, but I was just wondering from your point of view, do you see that it's been like effective on the local level or?
You said ISS?
ISF,
Oh,
Instructional
ISF.
Site Facilitators.
This year, we, as you all know, we've worked on changing the model a little bit. And I don't really have the data for this year because they are the intervention this year. So I believe it's effective. I believe that the model that we're using now, more people are getting support, and they're getting support from people who have a strength in that content area, which is important. But I don't know. I think I could answer that prematurely as to how effective it is. Our premise has been that we would implement using this model because when we took what we had so many people who had certification in certain areas, and we tried to take that situation but serve all the schools in all the content areas that they needed to be served in. And so we just basically took a square peg and tried to put it in a round hole. And that's challenging. And honestly, I believe in the instructional coaching model. I just think you have to have people who know how to coach and know their content. Mm-hmm. I hear that commentary coming out of you. But you all get the point. You got to have people who have a desire to coach, who know how to coach, who've been trained to coach, and that know their content. And sometimes, because a lot of these people were hired, ISS were hired by principals for whatever reason, I don't see a consistent skill set. Is that a good way of saying it? That's needed for an instructional coach. And so this year has been a lot of training, a lot of content training, a lot of pedagogy training. We're even training them on, and write this one down, I'll send this to you all, Jada, we'll send you this file on Daggett's rigor and relevance framework. I tell people, you're not talking about, when you mention the word rigor, you gotta show people what that means. It can't be an ambiguous or nebulous term. It has to be something that they understand. And I've always used the Daggett's rigor and relevance framework because it gives us a common definition of what rigor actually looks like. So we're even training them on that. So if many of them don't even know what that is, then how are you really helping teachers to teach to a level of rigor? And it's not their fault. It's just that clearly when ISS were implemented in our county, it was implemented very loosely. And I believe that if you're going to get job-embedded staff development, it has to be focused on improving the quality of instruction. And those who are supporting that process need to know what a good instruction is. From understanding the content standards, understanding the content, and understanding how to take that content and translate it into rigorous instruction in the classroom. And so we've been doing that. So it's kind of like we're kind of in transition, even with the ISFs right now. Change the model, training up, making sure. A lot of them didn't have coaching training in the coaching model. How can you coach if you don't know what the coaching model is? And so we're working to do that as well. Will it happen in 1 year? Probably not. Just been my experiences. It doesn't all happen in 1 year. But I think to answer your question, I do see value in the position. I don't know what this year's data is going to tell me, and how much I should even use this year's data, because we're still in this redesign training mode. So, it's kind of like, but I'll tell you this, my position is I'd rather have them than not have them right now, because I know how it works at this level. You take away a support, it'll be a long time before you get it back. So I'd rather go through some transition pains and train them up and coach them up and keep them, rather than someone tell me to do without them, and then I may not ever get that support back.
Hi. I want to just comment on the question about the technology and about the ISF. Those are two things that have been that I've seen to be very important in my classroom. This year I switched from kindergarten that I've taught for 13 out of the 14 years I've been in Clayton County to third grade. So I've been moved, and my cheese has been moved.
That's a nice
and because it was like 4 weeks into the school year, I didn't have time to plan for it. I usually take summers and everything. So the ISFs have been very, very useful for me. So I wanted to give you some feedback on that, because I'm learning a new curriculum. We used Imagine It in the lower grades, and then now I'm switching to Wonders. It's more rigorous, the Wonders, and it's just a whole nother, it's another world. So I've used the ISFs a lot, especially in reading and in math, and I have encouraged them to come in my class to see what I'm doing, to give me, and they have been, I'm really, really pleased with the level of knowledge that they have and how helpful they've been, because I've had coaches that weren't very, helpful and instructional in the past. So this program is really, really useful. The one thing that I would say about it, though, is that I wish they were around more. Going from school to school, I have to wait until they get to my school. I mean, I can email them, but I wish I had them more, because I'm really needy this year. And I imagine other new teachers probably are just as needy as I am, and could really use someone to hold their hand through some of the things that they're learning and what they're trying to do.
And can I pause you there?
Uh-huh.
This is our challenge, and I need you all to just be informed. We don't earn FTE on ISFs. So basically I have 100 teachers, they're teachers, that if you multiply, we budget about $70,000 per teacher, times 100, that's $7 million that the board is paying for that we don't earn money on. I see the value in it. And so the only way we could give you access to them more often would be to increase the numbers, and that's a challenge, and I'm just being honest, because I'm already paying $7 million out of the local budget for 100 positions that I'm not earning any funding off of. Does that make sense, everybody? And so I got to balance that with the board.
I understand that a whole lot better. And the technology is the other piece. I don't have access to the copies that I would like to be able to send home things with kids. But with technology, I can assign it on Google Classrooms, Google Drive. But we always have kids in the class who have no access to technology at home, to internet at home. So I know that I'm happy to hear that you are looking into how the county can bridge that gap, you know, for kids who don't have at home the technology that they need. But I just wanted to reiterate that it would be very, very helpful, because I have some kids, right now, a lot of the homework that I give is on Google Classrooms. And I have at least a few who have no access to internet, to, you know, things, because they just don't have it. And a parent just told me, she said, I don't have internet, I don't have, you know, laptop, yeah, I don't have any kind of technology that my child can use at home to access this stuff, and I'm not going to have it anytime soon because I can't afford it. And I understood that. You know, so I'm trying to come up with other ways, and even if we had a way that they could check it out, you know, check out something from the school, or I don't know, just something in the meantime, because they're going to be tested on the computers and they need to be very, be used to it, and we use it in the classroom, you know, all the time, but having it at home, that's where the real practice comes in, when they can practice at home. So those are my comments.
Well, we appreciate that, and just know we're having that same conversation. We partner with Comcast to offer for families who don't have internet and they can receive free and reduced lunch. They can get internet for $9.95 a month. So we've gotten that word out to families. Jada? We're partnering with the library, so if they don't have internet at home, they can use the public libraries. As I said earlier, we're working to see what type of devices we can, you know, little internet packs that they can check out so they can at least have access to internet at home. You know, I say internet pack, I don't even know if such a pack exists, but I've got technology trying to see what we can do to close that access divide. And we're just going to try to offer some solutions, and hopefully families will take advantage of a solution that meets their needs. But that is that's our reality, and it's a challenge that we're trying to address. Okay.
Dr. Beasley, I think the challenge is, a lot of parents know that you get Comcast for $9.95 and you can get AT&T for $10 a month if you receive food stamps, EBT card. So a lot of families know that, but the challenge in my class, and which I've noticed, is that they know that they can get those services, but like you said, they don't have the device at home to even use the service when they do get it. They're too far away from the library to even get there because they don't have transportation. So I think, and this is just me because I'm just a community outreach person, is that if we can have something at each apartment complex, like some type of study room, some type of computer lab at each of these apartment complexes, I think that'll just make a big difference. I know years ago I ran a summer reading camp. Well, I didn't do it at the school. Well, they couldn't get there, right? Buses don't run in the summer. I didn't run it at the library. I ran it in the apartment complexes. So I would have books that they would check out throughout the summer stationed at the apartment complex, because that's where the children were. They're not leaving that complex once they get there. So I think that's the biggest issue, is that we need to target where the children are most of the time, where they can get on the internet. Because having Google Drive is not doing my class any good, because I have 5 students that have a device at home. So that doesn't do my class any good.
Anyone else?
Just to add a little bit to the conversation about the internet at home. I didn't know about Comcast and the county trying to come up with some kind of arrangement. I think that's wonderful. I do believe there is a time that the parents also have to take some accountability for the children's learning. I do know I've gone to the county library. One of the problems I've seen, the resources are there. I see kids there all the time. And often I see kids that are dropped off. So we know abuse occurs based on the fact that if you have it, I can leave you there and I can come back in 6 hours. I think that that's one of those problems that's going to always be a problem, because parents do have to take some accountability. And based off of that accountability, children, when it comes to making purchases and things, I think maybe the mindset would be to kind of let them see what's the priority here. Is it the tennis shoes? Is it the brand new this or that? Sometimes it's the fact that money's there, We just haven't figured out economically how we really want to use it. So that's what I just wanted to add that.
And I agree. I think we would all agree with that. It's a balance. But oftentimes it's not the children that control how the money is spent. And so I think our commitment is to see what we can do with the resources we have access to give them access to a device. Realizing that there are some things that come with that. They're going to drop them. People are going to steal them. And so, but those are not reasons to not do it. Those are just things we need to be prepared to mitigate when they do happen. And so I'm more inclined to let's move toward getting devices in their hands and tools so they can have access to the internet. You know, some people say, oh, they may look at things inappropriately. Well, yeah, whatever. I'm sorry, but I'm just not of the belief that we can control everything. Let's move on.
I'm not going to linger on it, but just to speak on what you just said, my children are in Henry County, and my fourth grader literally stays on his, I guess, iPad, a laptop.
Is it a Chromebook?
Chromebook. It's a Chromebook. And he has the case for it. They do have the protection. We didn't have to pay anything up front. He did lose his charger already. That was $20 to replace. But I'm just looking at the plus side. He's always on SchoolPad, and he's always on these different programs, doing homework assignments, preparing for GMAS. He's just always constant. And because our students and our children are so technology driven, I think that will really incline them to stay on it if they had access to it.
I agree. And as we move forward with this conversation, I think, would you all be supportive of like a phase-in approach? Like you start at a certain grade and you just bring in on a new grade every year, and you provide the training to the teachers in that grade and the new grade each year. And it may take a little bit more time. Or you could really start, like if you start at the lower grade levels, I would say maybe third grade. Yes. Third grade, sixth grade, ninth grade, and every year you go up a grade. Does that make sense? Yes. Something like that. So we're looking at that, and I think sometimes it's about how we prioritize what we're using our money for. I tell the staff now, we can use our money for stuff or people, or how do we want to use the money? And that means if we just choose, the money is not growing on trees, it's not an endless pot somewhere. And so we got $50 million to use, okay, we decide, okay, we've been doing this for 30 years, it ain't been working for us. So can we take the money and do something else with it? And those are the type of conversations. So you'll see in the next few weeks a budget survey, get the word out. This will be the first time you all have even had to do a budget survey, but I will use your feedback as I'm developing the budget for next year. Budget questions, if we had enough money, what would the priorities be? From your perspective, if we didn't have enough money, what do you think we should cut? I want to hear from you all. And the team knows that we're going to basically build our budget by departments based upon what we actually need in our school system. So don't come because we've been doing it this way, saying we got to continue to do it this way. Is it aligned with our strategic goals and plans? Is it something we really need? Is it making a difference? Why spend all the millions of dollars on the money and it's not making a difference? And so those are the things, the conversations that we are having right now, and we'll continue to have as we develop our fiscal year 19 budget. So don't be surprised if next year we have some type of one-to-one where we roll it out in certain grade levels. And so we're working. I heard a student say this, and she was so articulate. She said, I don't want to, she's at a school where they gave some magnet kids a laptop. And she said, it's odd that we can get a magnet kids a laptop, and here I'm sitting in a desk that's about to break down or something like that. And y'all know I took that back to the team, and I said, now y'all gonna fix this, because she's got a good point. And so, I'm telling you, these kids, and when they say things, it hits my heart, because see, I know where they're coming from, because I've been there. Why certain kids get it, other kids don't get that, that really get my blood boiling there. And then as adults, we allow for those systemic inequities through our decision making. And so my commitment is that we will eliminate all inequities. If the laptops are good for the magnet kids, the laptops are good for the non-magnet kids. That's just how I look at it. So y'all say, well, we don't like the, yes y'all like the way I look at it, don't you? I think that's fair. See, I tell people, all 4 of my children, K-12 education, not none of them gifted, none of them went to a magnet program. My children were normal. They were still normal. But my children worked hard. And they're all in college. One graduated, the other 3 are in college. One is graduated from Xavier, the boys are working in their 3rd year. But they just average kids. You know, they're normal, but they're hard-working kids. I wasn't gifted or, any of that. But I worked hard. I just did my math problems. I studied hard. And so I don't want people to think, just because you got to have a label to get access to stuff in we as adults should, there are 3 areas that I'm committed to eliminating inequity. Write these 3 down. Inequity of quality. You shouldn't get quality because you go to one school and a lack of quality because you go to another. Quality. Access. If this school offers AP to everybody, then this school over here should offer AP to everybody. Access. And resources. There should be no disparities relative to resources. And so when you address inequities, you've got to look at those 3 areas. Quality, leadership, quality instruction, access, making sure that if this group over here can take world language in middle school, why this school doesn't have world language in middle school? So I'm working on that too, you all. Next year we'll have world languages K-12. So I'm telling you, y'all listen, I'm working for our children. Because I know how it felt to not have it. I know when they go, they got to compete, don't they? And so I want them to say, I came from Clayton and I got it, what I needed. And so we're looking at dual language programs in certain elementary schools, but all elementary schools will have some form of language instruction. All middle schools will have some form of language instruction. And then of course, all of our high schools will currently have language instruction. So that's something we're doing, and we're going to build it up over years. So, like in elementary school, it may be a part of rotation initially, but at some point, our goal is to ensure they get enough hours every week in that language instruction. It may not start out that way, but we're going to get there. Just got to do it over a period of time. And then, of course, I want students being able to take that. If they start in a dual language program, I want them to get that dual language experience K-12. And so we're going to build those dual language programs. My commitment is to have one dual language program in every cluster. And so I want one Spanish and English, one French and English, one German and English, and I think there's another language we're looking at. So they can get their instruction in both languages. So not just unidose. That's great. But not just unidose. We got to, again, removing those inequities. So more to come in that area. So I'll pause. Anything else?
I have a question. I know last.
But if I can backtrack to when we were talking about the technology access, I know before you had said that there was concern with the maintenance of it. Anyway, in Jefferson County, in Monticello, I remember in 2002, some service club had furnished all of the students with a laptop. And anyway, it might be interesting to research and find out how they did the maintenance with it.
Yeah, and we are looking at the maintenance. I just told them, don't bring me half a plan. I want a comprehensive plan so that can be sustained. I'm confident we'll have maintenance and all of that. But I just didn't want to come out the barn with half of a plan.
Good afternoon. I have a question. Last semester, at the end of the school year, I'm high school, we voted for the scheduling for our school, and I was told that it was a unanimous vote for a 4x4 scheduling. Is that any plans in our future as we prepare our students to be college and career ready, because if they go to college, they're going to be on a schedule where they are in a one semester, they end the course at the end of the semester. So we want them to be prepared for that pace.
Yeah, I'm meeting with the high school principals now, and they've expressed a desire to go to block scheduling. And I'm one I've implemented block scheduling, alternating schedule, AB block scheduling. And so I know the pros and cons, so we're working with them. But just so you'll know, the conversation with them is, of course, the quality of instruction. Because if you're struggling to teach 50 minutes, you're going to struggle to teach 90 minutes. Number two is when you go to block scheduling, you have to have more elective offerings. And that is a budget implication as well. And so I've got to balance that in this, as I keep an eye on the money situation. What I don't want to do, especially with the number of vacancies that we've carried out, what I don't want to do is create more vacancies that we don't fill. Does that make sense? And so we're trying to balance that. I understand the desire to go to block, but I want everybody to be clear. You can even do a hybrid schedule that doesn't require you to increase the number of teachers, but you may decide that we want to offer English and math for 90 minutes a day, and maybe, because you remember we're a Swiss district, a strategic waiver school system. We don't have to adhere to the seat time rules anymore. They've got to get the content, they've got to demonstrate mastery, but we have more flexibility and we can be more innovative with our scheduling. And so we're working with our principals to embrace, I know block scheduling is, depending on the school system, the state, and the area, some people think it's an innovative approach. I've seen it, and I've seen it revert to something where the kids are just doing homework, sitting in class for 90 minutes. You've got to really work on that quality of instruction. But I think we do control how we can build our master schedules. So we have the latitude today to be more creative in how we schedule and how much time we schedule for students in classrooms. We've just got to manage the other things, making sure that while we address a problem or an area of interest, that we don't create a vacancy issue, or that we don't add tremendous numbers of new positions to the budget when we're at a time when we shouldn't be doing that. That would be irresponsible right now. And so just all of those considerations, and of course that teacher training is important, because if you're going to teach in a block schedule, you've got to be able to teach in a way that keeps kids engaged, use a variety of instructional strategies, and we don't want the rigor to be compromised as well. Just so it requires some robust conversations, some thoughtful conversations, and a very intentional implementation plan that addresses all of those pieces, so we can do it, if we're going to do it right and do it well. But it's not a cure-all. I tell people it's not a cure-all. Even on the AB block, you get challenges where you have 4 classes on one day, 4 different classes on the next day. Homework becomes a challenge. Each scheduling model has its pros and cons. Swiss, a strategic waiver school system. And we have a waiver from certain state rules that allow us to be more innovative.
Oh, okay. I was wondering, in the 3 years I've been here,
Go to the website. There's a link on the side that says Swiss, and it gives you all the information and update us. You can see all the waivers that we have too.
Good evening. I want to apologize for coming in late, and I just want to, something that I'm not sure if anyone brought this up or not, and this is regarding subs. We're having a problem with getting subs at our school, and I have an idea of why, but the thing is, teachers are having to cover classes during their planning and during their lunchtime, and basically not having the time to do productive planning for their own classes. So I wanted to know if there might be a plan to try to get more subs or to find out why it is that subs are not plentiful like they could be?
Well, I'm gonna respond with the Beasley answer. First, I need folk to come to work, so we don't have to have as many subs. Okay, and that's our colleagues, right? But we all know that life happens and we do need to be absent from work. And so I think that there are some self-imposed structures that we're addressing with our new chief of HR, one being sub pay. Remember, we're in a very competitive area. And so if I have the choice of going to DeKalb or going to APS or going to another district on any given day, I'm going to the district that pays me the what? The most. And so we've got to eliminate that issue. I think additionally, I don't know why we impose these schedules on ourselves and we adhere to these schedules that don't work for us. We qualify people to be subs in the summer and then we don't revisit it until a later time. Well, I need subs throughout the year. And so I don't know what prevents us from having sessions throughout the year for people to be qualified to be substitutes. I think I'd rather have a pool of 10,000 subs and have subs in place every day than have a pool of 500 subs and I'm still in need of 500 subs. And so it's just a lot of self-imposed, and there may be some other considerations that I probably hadn't thought about, but we're working to ensure that we implement some internal processes that give us an overflow and abundance of subs. But at the same time, I expect principals to monitor that attendance, and let's make sure we can't be out on, everybody can't be out on Fridays and Mondays. Come on now, we got to come and teach the children. And, you know, I just don't remember myself taking off like that. I think when Laverne had the children, I took off a day or two. But even she was saying going back to work. You know, but we got to come to work too, because when you're not there, then that creates a problem for your colleagues. And so we need people to understand that. And you all got to have that conversation. Dr. Beasley shouldn't be the only one having that conversation. You got to have that conversation with your colleagues. But again, life happens. But when you have a colleague that's always out on a Friday or a Monday, or after every Falcons Thursday night game, just a little work to do. But we're working to eliminate those self-imposed structures that I think hinder the number of subs that we have access to from day to day.
Yes, so just to go back to that, the teachers being out, have there ever been a consideration for a change in our schedule? So the 9 weeks out a week, and I'm looking, of course, going back to other counties, surrounding counties, Henry County to be specific, how they're in for so many weeks and then they have the 1 week break in September, then they have Thanksgiving break, then, so on.
And those are things, I think what we're dealing with here is a culture and a mindset. There seems to be this culture that we don't want to work too much into the month of June. I'm just not, now y'all have been here longer than I have. But a lot of them, I know my kids had that, but they started, the first day of school was at the end of July. And I'm dealing with that culture here. Everybody said, no, we don't want to start school. Even the time that the date for the first day of school on the calendar, I was told, don't push it back any further. So it's a mindset that we're dealing with, and I'm not saying it won't change, it just didn't change for next year. Does that make sense? It's just a mindset, because I like fall breaks. But I was used to my children first day of school being on July 31st too. I was used to that. A lot of people are not used to that. But I lived in a county where that was just the norm. And so we got used to that. I like elite scholars calendar. Yes, I do too. I wish. Yeah, I do. I like their calendar. And, I like being out throughout the year because it gives you a chance to travel at different times of the year. But again, it's a culture, it's a mindset, and it has systemic implications. A lot of families, and we are also being mindful. You know, Henry is in the metro area, but sometimes not considered to metro. Clayton is metro. I don't care how you look at it. And so we got to be consistent with, because a lot of our teachers, you all have children in other places. DeKalb, Atlanta, Fulton, Cobb, Henry, you know. So we try to, you know, all of those are variables we try to consider. That's why our spring break, we try to be consistent with the other the metro counties. And it's just a lot of considerations. But I'm for a fall break. I'm for a break right now. But just be patient with us as we, you know, it takes a little time to get some places. And then the reality is sometimes the community's mindsets are stuck. This is just the way they want to do it. And we just learn to go along with that mindset. And it's, you know, and it's okay to do that, especially when it's not causing any harm. It's just a schedule. You know, we still have to have 180 instructional days and 190 work days unless we have furlough days. So.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi. I was late because I was working on sex.
Were you? That's a good
working on
thing.
sex. So excuse me. My question was about the K through 2 schools. And if there was, I don't know if you looked into them, but more so departmentalizing K through 2 with a stronger focus versus K through 5. And a lot of times the K through 2 doesn't get a lot of support because there's a lot of focus on 3 through 5. So is there any way possible you maybe could look and see, can we get just from what we already have and just putting a little bit more departmentalization on the K through 2 with the facilitators, the math, the science, the social studies, just so we can get a little bit more of that support of resources.
I'll make a note of that. I think just so for the benefit of all, you should know that we're looking at, in a few schools, about 12 schools, they're studying an integrated content approach at the K2 level. In light of the Swiss waivers that we have, they can do that. We're looking at opening up a pre-K school with the new SPLOS. We're thinking about changing the old Riverdale Elementary School into a pre-K center. Departmentalization, you and I would have to debate about that because I don't support departmentalization at that level because I think I like integration at that level, and I think sometimes we just make kids grow up too quickly, and I just think we need to slow it down a little bit. When I think of departmentalization, I think of middle school or high school, and I can see it in grades 3 through 5, but even there it has challenges for me, especially for parents dealing with 4 different teachers versus 1. And so while it may be easy for us as educators, sometimes it can be very frustrating for parents having to deal with 4 different people. No, but I hear you, because you mentioned departmentalization, but I heard the word support as well. Yes, so support. So we are, you know, we have content coordinators, but as you all know, I only have one content coordinator, K-12 in this school system. And that's a challenge. But I think the ISFs would be that support. And we do have ISFs who are designated for certain content and grade levels. And so that's just an area, as I shared earlier, that we're still refining. And as, you know, as attrition occurs, we can bring in some people who have the certifications and the content knowledge in the areas that we need for the grade levels that we may need. And you'll see an improvement, I think, over time. I hear you, homegrown. So homegrown meaning Clayton, that's it. There you go. 18 years, that's good. We need more of you. That's excellent. We're good? This has been very helpful. Jada, when's our next one?
Oh, give me 2 seconds.
So you're giving me some work to do between now and our next one. Some of the things, again, we're working on, so it's just a matter of giving you an update. But nothing that's too difficult. You think we're working on the right work? Yeah, and I think through these forums, I think we'll stay focused on the right work. Just remember, I tell people we got to lift up our school system, don't we? All of us are recruiting, aren't we? Every day we've got to get good messages out there. And when problems exist, let's get them resolved, address the root causes, and try to move the district in a positive direction. Because not only do we want to recruit high quality individuals, we want to what? Retain them. That's we want to make a difference in that area. Okay?
Thursday,
February 15th. So unless I see you while I'm visiting your school or something, if I don't see you, have a great Thanksgiving and a great winter holiday. Don't forget, no mid-year bonus check. I have to keep telling us that because somebody's going to email me, or 10 people are going to email me and say, are we getting a check? And I keep telling folks, put some gas money up at the end of December to get you from December to the end of January. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate all of you.